You might think of Fire Emblem as a sort of upstate farm where all your least favorite Smash Brother characters came from. But these games are a strategy RPG tour de force, and they always have been, ever since the series debuted on the Famicom with Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, a game title containing 6 different nouns. Despite the success of the original games, Fire Emblem didn't make it over to the West until the GBA. So the subject of today's video, Fire Emblem 9 Path of Radiance, developed by Intelligent Systems, is an interesting one. Because even though it's the 9th game in a behemoth series of fully featured RPGs, it is still a landmark title in many ways. It is the first 3D game in the series, the first one to feature animated FMV cutscenes, the Western home console debut, and one of the most prominent role-playing experiences on the Gamecube. So let's dive right in and find out why Path of Radiance is so darn special. In Path of Radiance, you play as Ike, a young mercenary, and his band of merry men, the Grail Mercenaries, who make their living killing bandits and protecting defenseless villas in feudal anime Europe. You've got Soren, the ride-or-die wizard who spent a little too much time on Reddit, Reese, God's favorite twink, Titania, the angel of death who basically wins every fight for you, and so many more. When the Mercs just so happen to save a princess born in secrecy, they quickly find themselves wrapped up in plots beyond their ken, and on the run across the continent of Tellius. And I won't say much more than that, because this game has one of the best stories told in a Fire Emblem game. Political plots unravel, mysterious relics are unearthed, and, all that kind of stuff. Fire Emblem games' plots are all over the place. They range from, wow, I'm really engaged, to, wow, I'm really engaged, to my sister, to, wow, I'm really engage. But Path of Radiance stands out for reasons I'll let you discover on your own. Anyway, so go into the story with an open mind, and let the colorful cast of characters carve their names into your heart, so that when they die, you have no choice but to shake your fists, reset your console, and start again. Because yes, if you were not aware, the core conceit of Fire Emblem lies in the intersection between its strategic gameplay and rich characters. Imagine chess, but every piece is an anime boy, or anime girl, or anime cat, and should they fall in battle, whether pawn or king, they are gone forever, and cannot be used again for the rest of the game. For many characters, this means they die in the plot, and dialogue adjusts as necessary. Even if nobody pipes up to say,
"Damn, I'm so sad horse rider Charles ate it last week,"
their absence will still be felt at key moments, and you miss out on precious support conversations between your favorite characters. These support conversations, like so much in Fire Emblem, have both a mechanical and narrative component. Narratively, they represent a blossoming relationship between two of your units, but mechanically, two characters that have fought together and trigger a support are able to buff one another, and both become stronger for it. Fans of the franchise might find that I'm stating the obvious here, but as I see it, this is really at the heart of what makes the series special. Not the combat or the characters alone, but rather how the two lean on one another to make for a deeper experience. It's easy to see once you get a feel for the game's rhythm. Path of Radiance is split into story segments, battle maps, and roster management. Story segments use visual novel-type storytelling to advance the plot between chapters. It's a lot of reading, and CG that's aged like a bucket of milk, but still worthwhile for the narrative. Watch Ike react with bovine slowness as the world goes to shit around him, and he navigates the treacherous waters of racism and imperial greed. Find your place in the world-spanning conflict between the humanoid Beork and Lagu's shapeshifters, whose ability to turn into awesome giant animals has made them social pariahs. For some strategy games, the story is mere connective tissue to get you from one place to the next, but I think Path of Radiance has a really standout story, as I mentioned before. Many of your characters have surprising arcs and form unexpected bonds, so keep an eye out even for the ones that seem like they will be trash. Of course, these experiences amount to very little without good gameplay, so let's talk about the battle maps. Yes, the battle maps. Battle maps are the game's true meat, where the excellent turn-based tactical combat unfolds. There are a variety of win conditions, unique terrains, allies to recruit, and foes to vanquish. Fire Emblem is well known for its iconic weapons triangle, which will shape your every move. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords. There are some tertiary vulnerabilities as well, such as flying units, weakness to arrows, but that rock-paper-scissors tight-matching strategic core is a huge part of what makes the combat so satisfying. Positioning is key to making sure you can send in the right units for the job, while keeping squishy mages and healers out of the line of fire. The Lagoos I mentioned before are a new wrench thrown into the formula, as their shape-shifting abilities cause them to swing wildly between the most useless unit ever who can't do anything, and a unit so overpowered it almost trivializes the game's route objectives, at least on lower difficulties. It all comes together in a perfectly paced 30 or so chapters. This is all well and good, of course, but how are the maps themselves? Well, it's one of the most consistently good sets in the series as far as I'm concerned. There are a few frustrating moments, but overall, the game is a moderate challenge, with a manageable difficulty curve and a fantastic set of climactic chapters toward the end. Whether you need to rout an unruly horde of bandits, board a ship beset by flying shapeshifters, or defend a single point from an encroaching army, the game is always asking the player to take what they've learned and apply it in novel ways. And they'll need to, because one too many missteps means death, or at the very least all your elixirs and vulneraries. And that brings us to roster management. You'll collect quite a company over the course of the story, and with each new unit coming with their own class, stats, chances at statistical advancement, called growths, unique abilities, relationships with other characters, and heart rate, which probably does something. In between battles and cutscenes, you can outfit these hooligans as you see fit, with weapons, spellbooks, and potions. It's up to you to manage the books, since you do technically have a finite amount of money. Not that I noticed, as I was able to craft all my favorite anime boys' named weapons and stay stocked on everything else without ever going in the red. I hear this is more of a prominent mechanic in the Japanese exclusive Maniac difficulty, which was removed in the Western release, since we Westerners can barely put down our Big Macs and die-cast Mustangs long enough to get the damn game in the console in the first place. I kid, of course, and Path of Radiance is not among the most difficult of Fire Emblem games as it is. I think it comes second only to Fire Emblem Awakening, in fact, in terms of suitability for newcomers to the series. It gives you all the punch and panache of the franchise's best elements, while featuring what may be the best narrative in the series. It's modern enough, being on the Gamecube, and comes at a killer low price of $200 on eBay. Goodbye groceries, hello Tellius. Now that I've gone on about the game's positive qualities long enough, does anything suck about this game? Not really, but I do have some things I'd like to whine about. For one, the game is too slow.
Too slow.
You cannot skip or speed up the flow of combat without disabling combat animations entirely, and even then, it's not really much faster. If you do end up having to reset on a map, you might be repeating 45 minutes or more of gameplay. If you're a bad, no-good, crummy gamer like me, that does add up, and even if you're not, there's no defense against random critical hits taking Ike out in a single shot, forcing you to start over. A fast-forward button is commonplace in the series now, so if they ever do remake this game, I pray to God they include it. Beyond that, there's quite a large disparity between the game's best and worst units. Characters like Ike, Moarim, and Titania are genuine powerhouses, and that's great. But then you have characters like Nephany, who I really want to use because she looks cool, but unfortunately she just kinda sucks too bad. There are many such cases of this, or at least enough to notice, and it's not exactly unique for a Fire Emblem game. In some ways, it's part of the fun. There's a certain satisfying element to dumping all of your bonus XP and a master seal onto a character you like, even if they suck, but all that doesn't mean I wouldn't like to see some genuine justice for the Nephanys of the world. Let's talk about presentation, the area in which Fire Emblem 9 has aged the most. The graphics hold up alright, at least in the mid-combat animations. They are repetitive, and you will get a little tired of them, but crit animations, or animations of Ike's signature ether, are pretty flashy even now. But in the sort of tactical overmap situation, the game is quite a bit uglier. Not that it really matters, but it's worth mentioning if you're a graphics fiend still playing the GameCube. The CG cutscenes fare much better, even if By today's standards, again, they're quite old, but still, they were very impressive for the time, and even now I think have sort of a old-timey charm to them. The visual novel segments, I think, actually hold up quite well visually. There's a charming sensibility about the anime drawings, even if they sort of just kind of stand there and blink. They're gorgeously rendered, and so too are the static backgrounds upon which they're placed. The music as well fares pretty good. It's not the best soundtrack ever, and it's not, loaded with earworms or anything, but it sounds very good. Regular series composer Yuka Sugiyoko takes a back seat into a sound supervisor role on this game, and Naoko Mitome steps up to the plate and does some fantastic compositions for this game. Have a listen. Again, it's not going to make you get up and dance the night away, but it underscores some of the game's most emotional moments perfectly. It serves as a wonderful backdrop to the game's action. I don't really have many complaints on the presentation front. The game looks great and sounds great for the Gamecube. If you take Fire Emblem 9 as it is, you will get one of the best turn-based tactics games ever made, one of the best JRPGs on the Gamecube, and a solid contender for Fire Emblem at its absolute best. It's a long and storied franchise which I have yet to fully plumb the depths of, but Path of Radiance has really taken me by surprise, and left a mark on my cold, dead heart. I recommend you give it a try.
Bruh.